Hello and welcome to this week's video. I'm Jay.
And I'm Robbie.
And you will instantly notice this is something a little different to what's normally on my channel. But it's not different for me and Robbie. So we used to do a podcast together, well, it's going back probably nearly 2 years since we wrapped that up, I think, called Generations Apart. I've talked about it before. We did a year-long run where we released an episode every week. And we used to get together and just geek out about games, technology, AI, VR, bit of everything really. And we had a lot of fun doing it, but life stresses got in the way. We decided though, we got both quite excited about the latest announcements from Steam, which we'll touch on in a second, and decided to dust off our podcast mics and give it another go. So a one timer, I should point out when I say give it another go. I'm not trying to commit Robbie here to a weekly release schedule again. So what we're going to spend time on this episode talking about is the Steam announcements, of which there were really three key things. And I'll let Robbie explain them in more detail in a second. We've got basically the Steam machine, which for want of a better word, is a PC gaming rig in a smaller box designed to go under your TV. It's aiming for the living room by the looks of it.
Great name.
Yeah.
Great name as well.
We'll get into a bit about that in a second. We've then got the Steam controller, which is dedicated controller hardware for your PC gaming and your Steam library. And then, I guess, depending on your viewpoint, either the most exciting or the least exciting is the Steam Frame, which is the new VR headset. And I think we said earlier it was the successor to the Valve Index. It's ultimately which is the last VR headset I think Valve made. So we're going to run through them and talk about them in that order. We're going to have a little guess with each of them as to what we think it might cost. And then maybe, depending on when these costs and release dates are all announced, we might come back and see how we did. Because who knows at the moment, it seems to be hugely up for debate as to where these things will land, especially the Steam machine, given the rising price of consoles and hardware. So Robbie, with all of that said, tell me about the Steam machine.
Steam Machine, great name. Also, what a quintessential story for us. If anyone who watched our old podcast, I'm a PC gamer, Jay's a console gamer. So, this is the exact kind of topic that we would geek out
meeting
on
place,
for
isn't
ages.
it, where we can become friends.
Yeah. And what an announcement as well, because really, the Steam Machine is a console. You keep mentioning it as like a PC that fits under your TV, but actually, they're almost marketing it as a console that you can just access your Steam library on, which actually, for anyone who's been a PC gamer for a while and is now wanting convenience over the complexity of PC gaming, this feels like it's firmly pitching at those kind of folks. So PC gamers who have also got that big Steam library already that they can take advantage of by just sitting on the couch instead of having to sit upright at your desk. But yeah, essentially the Steam machine is this box cube-like
Form factor's really interesting.
Yeah,
it's probably the bit you're least interested in, but I was like, ooh, interchangeable faceplates. That feels very Xbox 360.
Interchangeable faceplates. You can have like a wood effect one. I think they'll probably bring out loads that come out with it. And I imagine dbrand will be hopping on that as well. For anybody who gets like loads of adverts for dbrand skins and all sorts, there'll be loads of that. But yeah, I thought the form factor was really interesting. It looks like an Xbox that's been cut in half, I'd say.
Series X.
Yes,
it's got kind of
squarey.
It looks like a grown-up version of the GameCube to me.
That's a good comparison. But yeah, I mean, it seems really. You mentioned it's kind of mid-tier PC, is what it's pitching at, which I think is reflected in its capabilities. It's supposed to be 4K 60 capable, running on kind of Steam games, and I think it outputs 4K, and there's a bunch of other kind of hardware features in there, but they're to me less exciting because it's kind of mid tier. It's like it'd be interesting when we get to the pricing and what we think cost wise it'll be, but it's not going to be like a top end gaming PC. It's aimed very much at an affordable price for PC gaming, I think, with the kind of console angle.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is that it's going to be using Steam OS, which is what the Steam Deck is built on. And I own a Steam Deck, and it has Steam OS built into it as well. And the benefit of that is it's already got quite a well-established ecosystem of games and compatibility on the Steam library that will work really well on the Steam Deck, which means that it'll work way better on like a Steam machine. So it's well optimized for the Steam OS, and can take advantage of that greater
Yeah.
hardware that it's going to have in there. It's an AMD graphics card. I don't really know much about it, to be honest, but I've heard it's a kind of more beefier version of what's in the Steam Deck. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean that makes
the
sense, doesn't
specs
it?
say,
They're going to keep they're going to keep a degree of consistency between those two pieces of
mm,
hardware. Um, Sorry,
yeah.
go on. You were saying.
No, I was just going to say 4K 60, it says, but I think I've seen some early reviews where that is a bit of a stretch for some games. It mentions AAA on their site, as in it can run AAA games. But I imagine it'll be AAA games, probably not at 4K 60. The things that are 4K 60 are the more lighter games, the easy ones to run, from what I've seen in like early reviews. But yeah, I mean, it seems it's a really interesting take on. I'm interested from on your opinion as the console gamer who I don't know if you've got much in your Steam library. I've got tons and tons of games. So for me, this would be kind of plugging it into the TV and having lots and lots of games already accessible. But coming from console, is this something that would entice you to the PC dark side?
So, and this is why when this was announced, I sort of pinged you and went, "Oh, do you fancy doing this?" Because I do think trying to work out who this is designed to appeal to and why is the big question for me. Um, I did look at it and go, "Okay, you have my attention. Is this?" And I've not been when I say toying with, I haven't actively thought about moving to PC gaming at all. But there are regularly points where I think, are we getting to a point where actually PC gaming is almost going to become the default option? I'm almost going to have no choice. And I mean that from the point of view of kind of where the console market's going, the crazy rising prices in consoles, some of the sort of anti-consumer decisions that people like PlayStation made with their digital store, the things like Xbox are doing with Game Pass and the subscription services and the crazy rising prices of that. And so I have thought a few times, do I need to be thinking about PC gaming? But the thing that puts me off is the fact that it is, well, at least my perception is it's more expensive. You're chasing high-end graphics card, which themselves often cost more than the games console equivalent. That you need to run similar games. I appreciate the graphics are going to be better, but you're chasing that. And I'm a hardware. I like to have the best, the fastest. If I get the latest phone, I want the biggest hard drive, the best version of the phone. If I get a new laptop, I want the fastest available laptop at the time with the biggest hard drive. And again, I'm always kind of up specking things, which feels dangerous from a gaming PC point of view. And I guess once you upgrade the graphics card, it's then I need more RAM, I need a new motherboard, I need this, I need the other. Where does it end? So I'm a bit reluctant to get into that world. I understand it. I've built PCs before a long time ago, should add, but I can do it. I just don't want to do it. It feels like a level of complexity that doesn't appeal to me. So when I saw this, I thought, okay, so this to me is selling the best of Steam and all the great things I hear about Steam as a ecosystem, a library for your games, value for gaming. It's always cheaper to buy a Steam game on release than it is the console equivalent. That always really annoys me. And the sales are crazy. So you're picking top end games up for just a couple of pounds. So that's interesting, but it seems to be pairing that with the convenience of the console, which we've joked about before in previous episodes of our podcast. And I've had my rants about how annoyed I get trying to get games up and running. The whole point of consoles for me is the convenience. Back in the day, it was put a cartridge in, turn it on and go. Now it's put a disc in, install it, download 5 updates, and then go. But it's still super. It still works, and it should just work out the box. There's none of this. I've played with friends on PC before, probably yourself as well, where they start a game and all of a sudden, oh, something's not working. I've got an updated driver that was perfectly fine the day before and now isn't fine anymore. So I guess from my perspective, I was looking at it through that lens, thinking convenience of console, games library and accessibility and affordability of Steam. That feels cool to me. And I like new shiny things, and it's new shiny. So there's part of that generally appeals to me. But I was kind of wondering, I had a similar thought, which is I wonder what Robbie makes of this, because as a console gamer, I looked at it through that lens and thought, okay, this is maybe my gateway. I also did wonder, and this is maybe a technical question for later, whether or not this would allow me to make use of my wonderful, super ultra wide OLED desktop monitor I have at home.
That's a good question.
I don't know whether the Steam machine allows for multiple monitor sizes or screen sizes, or whether it's fixed to a 16 by 9 as a traditional a console would be. So that was one of my techie questions. But yeah, what from your perspective as you own the Steam Deck, you are, as you said, a Steam library, big Steam library owner, and you have previously been a PC gamer, now a Mac gamer. Dirty, dirty. But
Yeah.
where do you see it? Like,
I'm not looking for convenience. I'm a Mac gamer.
But when you look at it, what was your perspective? Were you thinking this appeals to me, or was it one of these things that I get why they're doing it, but it's not for me? Like, what's the general PC gamer do you think going to make of this?
Well, it's funny because as I'm getting older, I'm favoring convenience over spending ages tinkering, trying to get a game to work, or running mods, or anything like that. So, I did recently buy a PS5, and I've played it a few times when I just want to sit on the couch and get started with the game. And it's interesting because this would be almost a solution to that, in that it sounds like they've done a lot to really emulate the console experience as well. So if you've ever used any PC gamers out there, have used big screen, I think they call it on PC, where you can turn the whole display into like a console experience, and you can just use your controller to navigate to games and install updates, and it does feel like a console. They've went way further with that with the Steam OS to make it feel like a proper console experience. Even like the quick wake up to play features, like a whole entire operating system that's just built around the console gaming experience. And so it feels like this could be a solution for any PC gamers who are now moving to that. I want convenience over complexity. So,
and old Robbie, it happens to all of us.
I know. I mean, I moved to Mac as well. I moved to Mac and I moved to iPhone in the whole time knowing your Apple fandom is rubbed off of me, and now
poisoned.
Now I'm
yeah.
I'm leaning more on convenience than anything else. Interesting though you mentioned the game library, because I think there's two really interesting points about that. The first is Steam OS. You can download and install the Game Pass like cloud streaming, so you can. I saw a few articles that were just saying this is also an Xbox, because there's a whole everything is an Xbox thing.
Yeah.
So you could use this as an Xbox, so you can access your game saves, your Xbox library, and almost emulate this as an entirely Xbox experience as well. And then the other thing is, you mentioned the price of games on the likes of Xbox and PlayStation is so insane compared to some of the ridiculous deals you can get on the Steam store. As we're recording this, it's kind of in the middle of Black Friday. The insane sales I've seen on like really high end games is
this
is
the
crazy.
thing. You see, you go on the PlayStation store and they've got games at like crazy Black Friday prices. They're £40 down from 70, and you're like, that doesn't feel like a crazy deal. Whereas actually a lot of games are starting at £40 on Steam, 40, 50, I guess. What's a AAA game for go on Steam these days?
Well,
brand new.
I mean, it depends. Some of the really big game, like the new
Battlefield 6.
the new Battlefield 6 and Black Ops, they're up there with console prices, like 60, 70 pounds. But give it a year and they'll be way down, way down. The droppage over time is crazy. But most games, I'd say, are around the 10 to 20 mark on Steam. So it is really cheap. And when you catch them on sale as well, you will find 40, 50 pound games that are less than £10 on the sale. It's actually insane. So, yeah, I mean, just that ecosystem alone is really appealing, I imagine, to frustrated console gamers.
Yeah, and I think the other thing for me, from that console gamer's perspective, like I said, I don't have a big Steam library. I've got a few bits and pieces in there from over the years. I've got a lot of copies of Football Manager from back in the mid-2010s. I only know that because I recently bought FM26, and it's the first time I'd bought a Football Manager in 8 years. Yeah. So it was like, oh, that's been a while. But yeah, as you said, time poor, convenience is key. I guess the one thing that I would find something to weigh up for me is that the thing that's always appealed to me about PC gaming, as I said earlier, is that kind of the higher fidelity. Everyone goes on about, oh, the graphics are so much better over on PC, and you can and obviously modding's another thing, but we'll come back separately. I do wonder, obviously, the graphics thing is only really relevant if you've got a high end graphics card and a high end gaming PC, which, as you said, this is not.
Mm,
So it would be interesting to see when this is in the hands of users. What is it benchmarking next to? Is it Xbox Series X, as you described earlier, or PS5? Is it a PS5 Pro? Is
mm,
it is it Switch 2? Like, I don't know. What are we comparing this to in terms of console hardware? Is it comparable with modern or current generation consoles, or does it surpass it? Has it
mm.
gone beyond current generation consoles? It's almost a future-proof investment, as the next console generation is probably 18 months out now,
Yeah.
or at least from starting to hear about it. So that was one thing that interested me. And the other thing I was going to mention was that modding community, because the other thing I always hear about PC gaming is, it's the ability to mod and how much support goes into this stuff. And that, again, I don't think I'd dive heavily into that for for the reasons you described, being time poor and not wanting to mess around with my games, just turn them on and play. But it'd be nice to know I could if I wanted to. Is that something that you'll still be able to do, to your understanding, via games running on Steam OS, or is that restricted? Can you do that now on your Steam Deck?
That's a good question. I believe you can do I believe you can do modding on the Steam OS. I haven't done it myself, to be fair. But I think that there is the what's it called? There's a whole section of the Steam app that's dedicated to built-in modding instead of this like separate apps you can download on your desktop to do it for you and buy and not buy. Sorry, you can download these mods from websites and then having Mod Manager as a separate app to work with Steam or whatever game you're playing. But Steam has one that's built in, and you can download mods directly to games from there. I believe that works on Steam OS. So it makes even that is it's like way easier than the traditional have a mod manager installed, go off and not buy, download all your mods from a separate place, and then try and get them to work with all these different workarounds that you might need. So yeah, I think you can do it. It's just how far you want to go into that. Most people, I imagine, would just play the games vanilla. I mean, I do these days. I don't even bother with modding.
Yeah, I just mention it because it's always that upsell. It's
Yeah,
always,
true.
if when you have a debate with a PC gamer, there's always something there's like a handful of things that get thrown in at you. So, I can't play shooters without a mouse and keyboard. All right, fine, you do you.
Mm.
I would never play console prices. We touched on that,
Mm-hmm.
or I can mod the life out of it. And I'm not criticizing. Look, everyone's entitled to play games however they want to play games. I pick consoles for convenience, and I'm a console boy. That's what I grew up with.
Yeah.
I've played PC games in the past, but I've never been overly bothered, by those experiences outside of games that are truly mouse and keyboard.
Mm.
Like the RTSs of the world. I love those, and I do enjoy those on a PC. All right, well,
These days,
we've kind of.
you can plug in a mouse and keyboard to your console.
Oh, you can.
Uh,
Yeah, well, there's no avoiding it now either. If you're playing shooters, you're up against it wherever you go,
the
and
other thing
everything's got
is
crossplay. So
the other thing is digital games on consoles are kind of a locked ecosystem as well. So like CD keys or G2A, things like that, where you would go to buy like license keys for games that people might have got somehow and selling secondhand, which is even cheaper than the Steam store. That stuff works really well on PC, but I know for PlayStation, for example, that's not
yeah, I
really
was going to
possible
say
anymore.
Xbox, you can still do that.
Oh, okay.
They've shut it down. PlayStation have. Yeah, PlayStation do not have third-party digital keys anymore. I found that out the hard way when I bought my PS5 and moved on to the new generation, because that was a change from PS4 to PS5, and it's made it very difficult to have a digital library on the PlayStation that doesn't cost you an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
Either you're paying £10+ premium on brand new games that'll be 50 something pounds on Amazon for the disc-based version, or £70, maybe it's more like 60 on Amazon and 70 on the digital store, and that's day and date. That's the release day. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the sales, as you said, Black Friday, I've managed to pick up a few PS5 games on disc, sizably cheaper than they were on the digital store. I checked before I bought them to see whether there was a difference. I would like digital for convenience, but as a collector, I also prefer to have the physical. But I always check the price just to make sure that I'm not overpaying. And almost always physical is cheaper.
Yeah.
which will soon be dead. Let's be honest. It's got a few more years left in it. We'll keep fighting that good fight, but physical media will die fairly soon from a gaming point of view.
It's not far
Um,
off, really, is it? It's not far off. I mean,
no, not a subscription services takeover. I feel like it's a bit like Netflix has killed the DVD industry.
they've gone
People still
gaming
buy
as
them, but
well. They've got games that you can get from their
they
store for
have.
like the iPad and all
Yeah,
sorts. It's very strange.
Football Manager Mobile, the brand new one, FM26, has launched via Netflix. It was an Apple Arcade for the last couple of generations. Now it's on Netflix. Anyway,
Insane.
we're off topic. So before we move on from the Steam Machine, pricing,
Mm.
the big topic. So I don't have an insight here, but I'm going to just share with you a little bit of what I've listened to and heard on some of the YouTube videos that I've watched and things I've read. So I think in an interview with Valve or representatives of Valve, they've said that this is going to be priced at what they refer to as a mid-price PC,
Mm.
and it was going to be competitive. Sounds like they're not trying to sell it at a loss, to try and get them in people's houses. They are looking to at least break even, if not make a small profit on this. So first of all, I don't know what a mid-price PC costs.
I was
So
just thinking that.
that leaves me with no context. But if you look at, so what I was going to say was there's a couple of things that are going to impact on this. We've got hardware, rising costs specifically of GPUs and RAM, thanks
Mm.
to the wonderful world of AI. So manufacturers are having, the manufacturers of that hardware are able to ramp up their prices. They're getting huge demand. They can't make enough of it to go around, so they're enjoying charging a bit more for it. But it also means that that's then being passed on to people like Valve who want to make these consoles. So where have they landed on this stuff? Have they stockpiled it before the boom, or are they having to pay top dollar? Because you've also got the same challenge going on with consoles. Obviously, things like tariffs in the US have affected things as well. But we've seen console prices go up this generation, not down.
Yeah.
Normally, a console releases and 5 years into its life cycle, it would be coming down in price, ready for the next console. They're not. I mean, there've been some Black Friday deals, which has been great, but they're still holding and increasing, especially in the States, where
Mm.
they've gone up quite a bit. So yeah, what's your take? What are you expecting this thing to come out at, and on what and how are you deciding that number? Where are you at?
Well, mid-tier gaming PC, that could be anything. That could be
Yeah,
absolutely
that's
anything.
what I thought when I heard it.
I mean, really expensive gaming PCs, top end is like 3 grand. So, does that mean mid-tier is a grand and a half? Does it mean mid-tier is in most people buy a high-end machine at 2,000, so actually it's going to be closer to 1,000? Does it mean, I mean, if they're really targeting the console market, it has to be less than 1,000. Otherwise,
You
nobody's
just
going to
thought
buy
so.
it.
Well,
So,
so that was it. So the person I was watching who was debating this and did a much better job of it than me was suggesting 657, and I'm like,
ooh,
650, 700? That doesn't feel like enough for a mid-tier PC. Having said that, like I said, I've not bought one. In my head, if I was to think about budgeting for a PC now, I would be expecting to pay at least somewhere around the £1,500 mark for
mm,
something probably quite average.
yeah.
So, but like you said, if you compare this to what's the most expensive console right now, it's the PS5 Pro, right? Now here in the UK, that's £700 RRP. I bought mine for £580.
Nice.
That was my mic drop bombshell for you, Robbie, because I've been such a hypocrite about the PS5 Pro. I bought it this weekend on Black Friday, so
Oh,
I paid five.
oh my
So I have a
God.
PS5 Pro now. But anyway, that's for another day. But so you're looking at say £700 for a top end console, at least this generation. We did see the Nintendo Switch nearly double in price for its release. Now again, is that console doing anything to sort of deserve that, or 7 years on or whatever it is after the Switch One's release, are we just living in a different world where costs, we know cost of living's going up, as cost of parts gone up? Is £400 the new 250 or whatever the Switch was at launch, and is 700 for a pro console? I mean, I'm trying to think, what did I pay for the Xbox One X, whatever it was, the pro version of the Xbox One? I want to say that was 400, maybe 450. I can't remember. That's now 700.
Mm.
So I don't know. Are we setting a new standard? Are we expecting the next PlayStation and Xbox consoles? So I think the Asus ROG Ally Xbox edition, or whatever it is that's come out, isn't that? I'm going to get all these prices wrong. I should have checked this first. I want to say that's a good £700 or £800 at the lower end.
Oh yeah,
I
and it goes well
think.
into 1,000, I think, on the
Yeah.
higher end version.
So is this just a shift now in hardware prices? And should our expectations move? Is there any way this can release for less than £1,000? Don't know.
I think it depends how aggressive they want to target the console market. I think, to be honest, it's probably going to be around £800. That's my take on it. Because I think they'll be resting on their ecosystem a little bit more, as a bit more appealing to than the traditional console. But I mean, again, they might undercut it even further. They might, if they really want to target the console market, they might have it cheaper than a PS5 Pro.
They need to, because the PS5 Pro, a lot of people went, that's a lot of money. As did I. I got mine on Black Friday. Like I said, it was significantly discounted, and still, even then, at 580 or whatever it was, felt it felt like a pinch. I guess my question is, if it's £800, so let's say that, and that feels like I could see that. I could absolutely see that.
Mm.
Who's buying it? Because I don't have a big Steam library, so for me, that would be a push. If you've got a big Steam library, I can see it. But if you've got a big Steam library, you've probably already got the ability to play your games in a way that you're happy and satisfied because you've spent money on a big Steam library. So do you, for example, need a gaming MacBook, a Steam Deck, and a Steam machine? Now you're a techie like me, so you'd probably say yes to that. But what are your thoughts?
It's tempting.
Would £800 tempt you into purchasing one?
No, no, I think that would be too expensive for me. I couldn't justify it with everything else I've got. I mean, I've got the Steam Deck. For me, that's pretty much enough of a console, to be honest, by itself, because I can dock it, I can plug it into screens if I want to, I can sit on the couch and play it. I have a gaming PC as well, so if I really want to do some more intensive gaming, I've got that. So for me, I mean, it's probably not. I'm probably not the target market because I already have a gaming PC that is, pretty beefy. It's a couple of generations old now, the graphics card and things like that, but it's not struggling or anything. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm the target market. I don't think it would appeal to me, even if it was like £600.
Well, and so I put myself in the same position. If you said to me, "Well, does £600 to £800 tempt you?" I would say probably not.
Yeah.
Because I've made my investment. I've got my consoles, got my PlayStation, I've got my Switch 2, I've got my Xbox Series X, which I don't play that much anymore. So it's just another competitor to the existing hardware I have to play games that will ultimately be the same. There's not enough exclusives, and that's what I was going to say to you. Would it change your mind if Valve finally got round to releasing the sequels everyone's been asking for and gave us Half-Life 3 or Portal 3 and made them Steam exclusives? Would that tempt you? I doubt they could make them Steam machine exclusives. That would be very, very bad for their sort of business model and their kind of pro-consumer approach. So they're probably going to be available on all your other devices, but would it be enough to tempt you in?
No, probably not. But what I would say is that there are tons of Steam or PC exclusive. There's tons and tons of indie games that are not on consoles. And I would argue that they are, I guess, PC exclusive. And so there's a whole, genre of games that is not accessible at the moment to console gamers that, might be appealing to those who do want that bigger library, that bigger option, that bigger store to pick from. It's not always just the AAA games that I guess you could be worried about in terms of exclusivity. There are tons and tons of games out there
that's a fair point.
People don't use.
It's a good point. Again, I just wonder whether or not are there any big flagship exclusives that's going to, so, I'm a console boy. I would probably want, the draw for Nintendo, for example, is Super Mario. That's your exclusive. Mario Kart, Mario Odyssey, whatever. And the Nintendo, Metroid Prime 4. They're the things you can only experience on the Switch 2. You look at PlayStation, they've got a whole catalogue of their own exclusives. Is there something big enough on the PC to draw someone like me whose focus has always been on that kind of traditional console AAA experience over to the Steam machine. I feel like the only thing that they could pull out, and it's the only thing perhaps within Valve's control, are those franchises, which people would potentially pay money for if you could only get Half-Life 3 and Portal 3 on Steam, and the Steam machine was like sold as the best way to play it.
Yeah.
That might be an interesting one. Although, again, the precedent with those particular franchises was they were everywhere before, so it would feel a bit of a dirty tactic to try and sell that machine.
Doesn't feel
and
like
again,
a Steam ethos to have exclusives. I almost
that's
think
what I mean.
I almost feel like they're going the opposite with this kind of console, because they want to give you access to all games across all ecosystems that is possible, and make it more. I think that's the actual appeal. It's not a closed ecosystem. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a really, really open ecosystem. So you can play your Xbox games, you can play your PlayStation games that have also come to PC, and it's not that kind of walled garden.
And actually, it's interesting if you look at kind of the console wars, with the exception of Nintendo, because they don't put their games anywhere else, both Sony and Microsoft have and do publish their exclusives, console exclusives, on PC. So, will they change that? Will they continue to do that? I think they'll continue, but suddenly they're going, hang on, we were not putting it on PlayStation. Well, I mean, in fact, this is all broken as an argument, isn't it? Because Microsoft are now putting Halo and Gears and everything onto Sony. But, I don't know, interesting. Maybe we are just seeing the end of the console wars here, and that sort of where you choose to play will be increasingly become less and less about, whose hardware you buy. Because actually, you think...
I was just going to say...
you think about the way that Discord and crossplay have negated the need for a PlayStation, all your mates on PlayStation, all your mates on Xbox and party chat. I play regularly with my Xbox-based friends via my PlayStation using crossplay and Discord. Yeah. But then the other question then is, well, I have to pay for that privilege on my PlayStation and my Xbox. I don't have to pay for multiplayer on Steam.
That's another point. Point. I do think that open ecosystem is a really powerful thing, for sure.
I think we've debated Steam Machine for much longer than we probably need to at this point, given that we've got two other pieces of hardware to discuss. Probably not as much to talk about on this next one, but should we have a quick look at the Steam controller? And I don't know if it's worth just flashing this one up on screen as well, because I must admit I've not had a huge look at it. So this, just while you're doing that, quick recap on this. It looks to me, at least, like an Xbox controller with two, or in fact, no, it's more akin to the PlayStation, isn't it, with the parallel sticks, or whatever the appropriate way to describe it is. And it's got, now you have to tell me how these work. I assume these are kind of mouse equivalent touchpads that have ported over from the Steam Deck.
That's right. Yeah. So much like the first iteration because this is the second iteration of a Steam controller, they have these touchpad kind of thumb pads that you can move around, which are also, if I bring up my Steam Deck, you can see are on each side of the Steam Deck. And actually, if I zoom out on the Steam Deck, you can see that the controller just looks like a squished and angled version of the Steam Deck.
Yeah, it does.
So that's heavily inspired by the original controller as well as the setup on Steam Deck. And they actually work surprisingly well. I remember when I was looking up the Steam Deck before I bought it, I was quite skeptical about whether I'd ever use it, especially for... It's there, basically, for those games that are traditionally used with a mouse and are really difficult to use a controller with. And actually, it's quite effective at those games, making you feel like you've got as much control as if you have a mouse. So you can play like Civ games, RTSs, things like that. Probably not as quick and as effective, but it's pretty good. I enjoy using it.
I mean, as a controller, it looks a lot like what we're used to now. I feel like innovation in controllers is seriously diminished in the last couple of decades. You look at how radically different the SNES controller was from the NES controller to the N64 controller, which was divisive, to the Dreamcast controller, and then Xbox and PlayStation have stayed fairly true to their designs, iterating sort of slowly. Nintendo's Pro controller now just looks like an Xbox controller. This doesn't look radically different. But what I do like as I'm looking at this page, so obviously the touchpads are unique and required for that kind of PC interaction. I love the little bit of innovation in that connector
Yeah,
and
I was
charger,
thinking
and
that.
the way that also acts as the wireless connector. That's really cool. A really nice little feature. And then you've got magnetic thumbsticks. Great. I'm sure that'll feel nice. Not quite sure. I assume that's to avoid things like stick drift and wear.
Well, I
I'm not
think that
sure what the
the Hall
benefits of that are.
Effect, Hall Effect thumbsticks are like I think previously the industry best in terms of longevity and accuracy. I think these magnetic ones are supposed to be even better than that. So longevity to avoid stick
Right.
drift, but also accuracy as well. So, for those.
Interesting. And then high definition rumble. I'm past caring about how people describe rumble. Every controller rumbles in its own way. That's fine. Grip enabled gyro is quite interesting. So I guess for games that require motion or where gyro is useful, it doesn't just do it all the time. My assumption is that requires you to apply a degree of grip to the back of the
Yeah.
controller, or I don't know, however that's going to be applied. So a nice little bit of innovation there as well. Am I right in saying this? Obviously, this works on PC, so you don't need to buy this just for your Steam machine. I think it comes bundled with the Steam
Oh,
machine.
that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Question mark. They haven't released another controller, have they? So I assume it does. But I mean, you've got there, like you said, laptop, PC, Steam Deck
Hmm.
as well. So I'll ask you that question in a minute about whether this entices you. Steam machine and the Steam frame. So what will be interesting to know is it intelligent enough to move between those devices on its own, or does it have to be kind of bound to each controller? I'm thinking about how the H3 chip works in Apple devices, where your AirPods just know which device you want to be using it on, and then they just connect to it. It'd be nice if your controller could do that. It could sense the device that was active and go, "Oh, I'm linked to Robbie's Steam account, and now I'm on the Steam Deck." Or, "Oh, he's put the VR headset on. I'm now connected to the VR
That would
headset."
be futuristic,
I don't
but
know if that will be the way
I
it
think
works.
we might be hoping a bit too much for this ecosystem. From what I've seen,
Well, you say that. Why is it unrealistic, though? I mean, it's not doing anything. That's not that radically different to what I described with Apple's H3 chip and the way their technology
true.
works.
I mean, a lot of innovation went into that
Yeah,
before, and which I don't think. I mean, it might do,
yeah, but it's been
might
around for
do.
years now.
But
Mm.
from what I've seen of some of the earlier videos testing this out, I think it's just a simple. I think it might be able to connect to multiple devices with a simple toggle between them, just like you might have like on a keyboard or
Oh,
mouse.
that would do.
Yeah, yeah. It's on.
It's less
It is,
interesting,
yeah.
but it'll do.
Maybe they didn't want to over-engineer it, I guess. The Apple way.
Yeah, true.
Um, yeah, slide
Ooh,
dig, slide dig.
careful. You're an Apple boy now.
But yeah, I mean, looks like
So,
a controller.
well, what else is there to say about the Steam controller other than, I guess, to sort of speculate on price? I don't think they tell us when. And I guess the question of, as a Steam guy already, does this interest you?
No, not really, because you can connect a PS5 controller to your PC now, and actually, I really like
Yep.
the adaptive triggers, and I mean,
This has got adaptive triggers,
good
hasn't it? I
question.
think.
They don't shout about it.
Oh, I feel like I saw that. Well, maybe it hasn't then. I assumed it would have adaptive
We
triggers.
know because I don't think this is going to be a particularly expensive device.
You don't.
I don't think so.
So I know that the previous Steam controller was a bit out there in terms of innovation, but ultimately didn't
Mm.
do all that well. I've got no idea how much it costs though. A typical controller at the moment seems to range anywhere from around 50 to 70 or
Mm.
80 pounds.
Yeah.
So a brand new PS5 controller,
Mm-hmm.
74.99. I think the Pro controller for the Switch is somewhere in the region of 59 to 69 pounds. Can't quite remember. Xbox controllers are about 60 pounds. So is this, in your mind, going into exactly the same ballpark?
I think it
Higher,
might be in
lower?
the same ballpark, but on the lower end. I think it'll probably start at around 50.
Okay, you think they're going to come in under then the kind of industry standards, if you want to call it that? I'm only asking because again, we've got back buttons and all sorts of stuff are going on here. None of the core consoles at the moment. Oh, in fact, that's a lie. Switch 2's got back buttons, but the only back buttons on PS5 and Xbox Series X are on the Elite controllers, and you start at around £150 for
True.
those.
True.
And you said this has got magnetic analog
True.
sticks, so it's got touch pads. It's got HD rumble, this grip thing on the back. There's quite a lot of technology going into this.
There is, but I don't think it's nothing new. really. And the only thing that I think is new is potentially the magnetic thumbsticks. The
Mm.
trackpads, I mean,
The little wirelessy dongle, fancy charger cable
it's
thing.
definitely something that feels like.
It's all extra cost, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
No consoles just come with USB leads, USB-C leads now. If you get a lead at all,
I think if they weren't expensive, why wouldn't you buy a PS5 controller or an Xbox controller? That's
yeah.
the issue.
I don't know. It depends. Again, it depends because, well, I guess the obvious answer to that is that a PS5 controller doesn't give you the touchpads,
True.
and it's got less buttons. So if you're playing PC games and you need more controls, more addressable keys that you can configure, you might need that experience. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't have, I've got no idea. In my head, I was like, if this was £75, £80, that would feel. But that's what a PS5 controller costs now. So why would it be less? I feel like it's got more functionality, more buttons, a little bit more tech in the box.
Maybe.
I just assumed that would cost
Maybe.
more.
Maybe you're right. I would be interested to see this one. This is
And if
probably
they're
the one
going to
that
bundle one with
I
your
don't
Steam
know.
machine,
It's probably the one that I know the least, or find the hardest to guess.
I mean, even two Joy-Cons, brand new Joy-Cons, the Switch 2 is going to run you £70. Maybe bugger all. Well, I said bugger all. They've got a bit of tech in, so they've got there's some sophisticated stuff in there, but it's just gyros. Yeah. This has got touch-enabled gyros, touch pads on the front, multiple addressable buttons on the back, fancy magnetic analog sticks. I say fancy; they might be super cheap to make, but if they are, if they're cheap, why would they call them out? They've made a specific fuss about them on that homepage. I don't know.
Maybe right. Maybe.
What would you? So you're not interested in it? Ironically, I'm probably more interested in this than I am the Steam
What
machine.
would you use it for?
Because I could connect it to other things. So, well, I don't know. I would. This is it's a sort of stupidity of me. The reason I would probably pick it up is that I could. So I don't play. I don't have any games on my PC right now, but my PC can game. It's good enough to game. It's going to be mid tier, but it can game. I might be tempted to get it as a dedicated controller for my PC, and because I use my PC for streaming, I have a god awful wireless trackpad keyboard just for convenience while sitting down on my little streaming setup. I could be tempted to have one just as a way to kind of navigate my PC if it works like that. I don't know if it does. I assume you can use the trackpad anywhere in Windows as a mouse. Don't know. Just I mean, for the cost of entry, if it was say £75, I'd probably buy one just to have a go and to form an opinion, because I could use it on my Mac. I could use it on my PC. I've got more ways I could use that. Whereas a Steam machine, even at £1,000 or £800 or even £600 is a big investment if I don't know I'm going to get the use out of it. Whereas I've got many bits of hardware that cost me 70 quid that I don't use that I feel much less regret about than I would a £600 or £700.
It's interesting
console.
though. You just mentioned you've got a, I guess, mid-range gaming PC that you can game on.
Mm-hmm.
Would you, I guess, going back to the Steam machine, would you get a controller for your PC and have that as a mid-tier console if you could load up, say, SteamOS on there and use it like a console? Or would you prefer to buy the new shiny?
The sensible part of my brain says, yes, of course I would use my existing PC. It depends on how much more powerful the Steam machine was, because obviously we're talking, I bought that thing in COVID, so it's like 5 years old, and it wouldn't have been, the graphics card wasn't top tier then. I think it's only a 2070 or something. So someone who knows will be laughing, going, mid-tier gaming, you've got no chance. But, when I've tried to run things on it, it's absolutely fine. It can do what I need it to do. The other thing that I'm going to neatly segue into hardware item number 3 by saying the other reason that I might buy one of these is because I'm probably more inclined, despite the fact that I don't use the 2 VR headsets I have, to buy a Steam frame than I would be a Steam machine.
I'd agree, and I actually, I think the controller would work quite well in that scenario as well, because we will get onto it in a second with the Steam frame, but the idea of having the VR headset and playing Steam games, just like streaming like a big screen, I think it's quite appealing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, should we go there then? And let's have a chat about Steam frame then. So super high level. I mean, it doesn't look radically different to a Quest. A couple of interesting things I know about it, and then we can get into the hardware. So it's a wireless headset. So it's the PC is truly on your face this time. whereas Valve Index were all required a dedicated gaming PC to drive them. It's got controllers that look strikingly similar to the Quest 3 line of controllers, and I guess probably most controllers at this point, which again I have no issue with in principle. I don't. We can get into the tech spec and get into more specifics. I don't think it's radically more powerful than a Quest 3 from what I've read. And there's a weird quirk about this one, which is that it doesn't have color pass through. It's only got black and white pass through, but there is also an external hardware port that potentially allows you to connect cameras to enable color pass through should you want it. So that feels to me like we're giving you the option, but we're keeping it slightly more affordable for us to produce and sell by not incorporating color pass through. And I also believe from a hardware point of view, you can upgrade or you can add additional memory via an SD card or a micro SD card, which again is something that on previous VR headsets you couldn't do, and on the Quest 3 you're locked into whatever you decided to buy when you purchased the device. Beyond that, I haven't really got into the internal specs. I think eye tracking and foveated rendering was mentioned, which is a great kind of feature on PSVR for optimizing performance where your eye's looking. And as you mentioned, kind of alluded to just then, it's your full Steam VR library and your Steam flat screen games in a simulated environment, a bit like I guess what we've seen with Apple Vision Pro, showing how you can watch your movies in a simulated room with a simulated screen. And then we did touch on it before we started recording, but I guess you can still play your Steam, so your PC VR. So if you have a powerful PC, you've now got a dedicated wireless dongle to give you true wireless full power PC VR.
Which is insane. Absolutely insane. That's definitely the standout feature for me on this one. Wireless VR streaming. Crazy. It used to always have to be plugged in. I think I think you can do it on the MetaQuest 3, but from what I understand, it's...
I was going to say not always, because I've experienced it on Quest 3, and it works. I mean, I've not played it for extensive amounts of time to kind of push it to failing. It did work when I tested it. I don't know whether it's a positive experience, whether it's a consistent experience, what kind of lag you experience. Obviously, a dedicated connection is going to be superior.
I've heard...
But that's got to be a sell if you're a big PC
that's
VR
it.
player.
I mean, I've heard the feedback on the wireless capabilities of the MetaQuest 3 is it can be jarring at times, especially if it starts to struggle with connection.
Yeah, well, that's it. If you don't get consistent, high quality visuals in a headset, you're heading straight to vomit town.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So that is a crucial part of that VR experience.
So
for sure.
I mean, let's see if we've got it here. They've got their wireless adapter. So instead of relying on the built-in connection capabilities of your PC, so I think I'm not sure what the MetaQuest uses, but I imagine it's Bluetooth.
I think it's Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. I think it might be
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi.
That's better.
Don't hold me to that. I don't know that for a fact.
But a dedicated 6 gigahertz wireless adapter is supposed to be like way stronger connection. And I think the videos I saw on YouTube was that people were like 20, 30 feet away from their PC and they were still able to render, starting to cut out a lot. But it just massively opens up the space that you can work with, and streaming really powerful games ran by a PC instead of the computer on your face approach.
That foveated streaming is, foveated rendering on the PSVR, for those who don't know what it is, basically uses eye tracking to pinpoint where you're looking, and then it renders the best, highest fidelity graphics at the point your eye is looking, and then basically lowers the amount of compute power required to render the rest because your eye isn't looking at it, and then it snaps it into focus as you start to look around. And honestly, you would never know it was happening when you're playing the PSVR. That's the beauty of it. It's seamless. So if it can do that, but it can do it while streaming, that's going to optimize the performance even further, isn't it? And ensure perfect visuals where your eye is looking. And probably take the load off the streaming side of things a little bit by not having to pull the whole scene down in its highest fidelity all the time as a constant stream. So assume that's going to help with that.
Crazy innovation. So foveated rendering is what has been around. I think it's with the PS5, the Vision. What's it called? The PS5 VR2, PSVR2. That's the one.
PSVR,
So it
VR2,
needs
yeah,
eye
PSVR
tracking
2,
to see
yeah.
where your eyes are looking, and PSVR2 brought that in with that foveated rendering. But foveated streaming is slightly different because it's less about the resolution of what it's showing you, and it's actually the buffer rate. So if you're buffering a video on YouTube and it looks kind of blurry and it's trying to figure it
Yeah,
out, but it's not like a resolution issue. It's just a bit blocky because it's not fully not fully streamed.
yeah,
It's that specifically for this. So if you were able to catch off glimpse, you would just see a really blocky, half-rendered version of whatever you're supposed to be looking at. Not even like less resolution.
yeah.
But the eye tracking apparently is so good that people have been testing it.
Yeah,
You're
but
like
you
whipping
never
your eyes
notice it on the
around,
PSVR. Honestly, it's
trying to catch
incredible.
it.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't. You'd be sick if you did it anyway. But yeah, you never notice it. And to be honest, yeah, like you said, because the game itself will be
Mhm.
fully rendered on your PC. It's then just streaming the bits that are
Yeah,
essential to the bit you're trying to look at, which is
insane.
such a clever thing to do. Obvious, I suppose, when you think about how to achieve this. But I'm sure so much tech and R and
Crazy.
D
But
has
just
gone
think
into
about
achieving
it.
that.
Has to
Oh, oh,
firstly track your eyes, tell where you're looking, and then stream it to your PC to tell your PC what part of this scene you want to look at. Then stream that back and then render exactly where you're looking at in higher fidelity, which is and it
mad.
all happens. I can't remember the latency that was mentioned on the video I saw, but it's insanely quick.
I have real faith in this being a good headset. Valve, they were the ones that really championed VR back in the day, didn't they? Alongside Oculus, I suppose, which became Meta, but I feel
Mm.
like it lost a little bit on the way. Meta seems to be more interested in their glasses now, and I'm sure we will still see revisions to their VR headsets. But the Quest 3 felt like it was trying to be a low budget Apple Vision Pro. I mean, they basically killed the Quest Pro overnight, didn't they, by releasing
I know
Quest
you were
3 at
gutted
like a
about
fraction of the price. Um, I didn't buy the Pro, so it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
I had one, I didn't buy it. Um, but yeah, the Quest, I've got the Quest 3 now, and I must admit, like my PSVR headset, it's gathering dust, and that's more to do with the fact that I seem to have developed as I've got older a bit of a VR belly, or a lack of a VR belly, and it makes me feel a little bit motion sick. So I need to kind of work out how to get over that. But doesn't stop me from looking at this and going, is this my next
Yeah.
VR dust collector? Because I'm interested. I think it sounds really interesting. Like I said, I've got a huge amount of faith in Valve as a
Yeah.
company to do this and do it well. They've got a good track record for this. Quest 3 is trying to be everyone's budget-friendly VR headset. Apple Vision Pro is
Mhm.
completely insanely overpriced in terms of not overpriced. I'm sure that the component parts justify that expense, but it's just not for the common person. It's too expensive. It's never going to appeal to the mass market. I'm interested to see where this lands, because it feels and looks like it has a lot of the similar hardware, or almost like a hybrid to some degree of the PSVR
Yeah.
and some of the things it does well, some of the stuff that Quest 3 does well, a few extra innovations to make this work as a PC, dedicated PC VR headset as well. And as we mentioned earlier, that Steam OS to be able to play your flat screen Steam
That's
games in
super
the
cool.
headset, that to me makes it more appealing than the Steam machine, because it
Yeah.
just gives it so many dimensions. I didn't mean that as a 3D kind of pun for virtual reality, but genuinely it has. Couple that with the controller, as we just talked about, and you've got quite a compelling solution there. If I had a broader games library, maybe that would make it even more appealing. What'll be interesting to see is what quality this can play at. If you're talking about playing your flat screen games, what's the hardware? How does this compare to a Steam Deck / Steam machine / I don't know what else? Because Quest 3 there's some pretty good looking games on the Quest 3. To be honest, it does a pretty good job, but they are
Yeah.
designed for that hardware. They're not flat screen experiences, that have
Yeah,
to then
it's a
try
good
and run in a
point.
headset.
When I was looking at the stats, I think it's something like it's Ultra HD per eye. So I think that it's supposed to be pretty high resolution, 144 hertz. So able to handle
Mhm.
the fast refreshes that you'd need, so you don't feel sick moving around. But I think I mean, there's a bit of an illustration on screen of what it might look like if you had that screen game in front of you. What's interesting though, I think
Yeah,
about in this demo that they've got is it makes it look like there's pass through.
the full
Yeah,
color
yeah,
environment
which is
around
not
it.
true.
Yeah, which
Yes,
there isn't,
bit
which
weird
is
that
a
they've
bit
tried to
weird.
do that.
Yeah,
Because that won't be what it looks like. I imagine you'd be in some kind of setting that you'd choose yourself, some kind of background, or maybe in a forest or whatever. Um, so it's interesting that they went for that approach as part of the advertising. But I do think this is the most appealing part for me. I think sitting down and having a screen that you can just play your games on. I think that is really quite cool. Especially, for me, I'm in the living room sometimes. I like playing games. I find sometimes this is a bit small, the Steam Deck, to play some games that really
yeah.
would benefit from a wider view.
Would you would you feel weird though, like popping the headset on and disappearing into your own little world while sat next to your wife in the living room while other things are going on around you? Would you not just
No.
go to another
I
room?
mean, I would do it now. I mean, I've got my face sucked into this. I'm basically like right in front of my face.
Yeah, but you're in the environment. So when you put these, this has always been my slight issue with VR is that I don't play my PSVR and stuff for multiple reasons, but one of them is that when I put it on, I'm
Mm.
oblivious to what's going on around me, and that is, and when I'm on my own, no problem, but I would find it slightly weird to go and sit with my other half on the sofa and then be like, "See you in a bit," just bump, and then you just become this like. I imagine it's a bit like I'm trying to think of a movie example where you see people kind of almost disconnect and then go into their avatar, but there's just this like carcass that's just sat there, devoid of life because the person's
True.
in this other world.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah,
true. It is
I
a
don't
bit
know.
weird, especially if you don't have the pass through, because you're really properly
Yeah,
disconnected from the room. That's a good point. I mean, even with
and it's perhaps more weird for the other
yeah,
people than it would be for you because even with pass through, like when I got my Quest 3, I was walking around the house with pass through on, chatting away, thinking it was great, but then you realise that the other person is talking to you with a mask on for all of it, with no eyes that you've got, and
yeah,
that's how we connect, isn't it? That's why
I was just about to
Apple put
say
so much effort into that weird
that
avatar eyeball thing, like
people still don't
because it was to
use
try
it
and create that
because of
connection.
it on your face, and it's even with the weird eye thing that they've got, it still disconnects you from everyone else. I've heard people who've bought it and don't use it
Yeah,
around their family because it makes them uncomfortable, as you'd imagine. And this is partially one of the reasons why I think Meta's really
yeah,
going hard down the glasses route and the AR route because it still
mm.
connects you to the room, even though people don't really like wearing glasses. It's still a bit better than like you feel like he's there, even though you might be looking off to whatever's printed off on the screen on your glasses. But it's a good point. I think you would be a bit disconnected. I mean, even this example, this lady's here sat next to someone who she won't be speaking to.
yeah, yeah. She'd be like, "Oh, look
That's
what I just did," and
it's
they're like,
true.
"I can't see what you just did."
Um,
Yeah, yeah. Oh, did you see that?
mm.
No, because it's
What's
still
interesting,
strapped to your face.
you mentioned
Yeah,
the black and white
yeah.
pass through.
Not knocking it.
I think it is a weird move, but I also think they know what they're targeting. They're not going for the spatial computing market. That's not what they're interested in, and so they really are
No,
for gamers. And I think it muddies the waters if they start bringing out features that are a bit uh, kind of augmented reality.
I agree. I agree, and I mean, I don't know what the difference between a color camera and a black and white camera is. To be honest, that seems a bit odd in the modern day that cameras only capable of doing black and white. I mean, maybe there's more to it than this. I might be oversimplifying, but that seems weird to me. That's a more affordable choice to go for something that's
Yeah.
so like a featureless. But like you said, maybe there are multiple reasons why they've done it. Maybe it's a processing power thing. Maybe if you're not intended to be in. So one of the things that the Quest Pro struggled with was
Mm.
it had black and white pass through that the Quest 3 doesn't struggle with is that Quest 3 has depth perception as well as the color pass through, so it was much easier to work out things in a 3D environment. Sorry, the Quest Pro did have color pass through, I think, but it wasn't
Oh.
with depth perception, so things just didn't make you couldn't judge where things were. Whereas the way that the Quest 3 maps an environment and then passes that data through, so perhaps it's a level of complexity as well. maybe delivering color pass-through isn't as simple as putting a color camera in, because that depth perception does create an
You'd have
issue
thought
if
though
it's not
that
done properly.
you'd need that depth perception ability to just map out your room for VR anyway. So I'm surprised it just doesn't come with.
It might be how it's visually rendered. I don't know. Maybe it's a power thing. Like I said, maybe they just don't want that
I,
extra drain on the device.
this
Don't
is
know what the
their
spec of this thing is, how it compares to a Quest 3. It's
yes.
quite
I
similar,
think
I
it
think.
is. I mean, this is Steam's first battery powered, yeah, wireless. So
Wireless.
maybe they are a bit
Yeah,
conscious
truly
about
wireless
not
headset.
putting in too many features to drain the battery. Um,
Mm.
which is I suppose makes sense. I mean, it's interesting. It's got a USB-C on the back of the head strap, which is where you can charge it. I guess you could do a similar approach to what you got the Vision Pro, where you could have a battery pack in your pocket. And you
Separate
plug
battery in your pocket or
yeah,
something. And plug yourself in. Turn your
yeah,
wireless headset
essentially
into a
with a
wired
battery in your
headset.
pocket, which I'm sure won't get super
Yeah.
warm as your
Yeah. I mean, that's probably
yeah,
partially to distribute weight as well, because I think the Quest Pro had a similar feature where the
which makes
battery was on the
sense.
back of the headset. And I bought a battery pack and sort of better
Mm,
pro headset thing for my Quest 3 to better
yeah,
distribute weight and double down on battery life. So I suspect that's probably what they've done. I bet the battery's in the back, just to try and balance out the weight when it's on your face. I think from what I remember hearing or reading that it's marginally lighter than the Quest 3. And despite having similar spec, I think there is an expectation that the chipset is faster and potentially more power
yeah. It's a
efficient.
mobile.
Um, but
It's a
I'm not an
mobile chip. I
expert in that
think
field, so
it's
don't
when
hold
I
me to it.
saw some videos, it's last year's flagship Snapdragon chip. That's I guess in flagship smartphones. Um, so I guess it's powerful. I don't know what's actually in a MetaQuest 3, um, but it might be something similar to this, to be honest. But I think this is just more modern because it's last year's
Well,
flagship.
it's a time, as we always try to keep. Well, we never managed it to be back in the day in our podcast. We always said now, and we never ever managed it. But let's try and get it as close as we can. So, quick question for you: what do you think this is going to cost? And are you interested
I
in
would be
buying
interested
one?
in buying this. My other half might disagree because we don't use our other VR headset very much at all. But that is a plug-in one. But I would be quite tempted by this. Price-wise, that's a tough one. Because again, if they're targeting MetaQuest 3 market, which I imagine they will be, it's got to be around the what's a MetaQuest 3 like £400-500? I think it might be a
Yeah,
similar
in that
price.
ballpark,
I
I
think
think.
it's probably going to be about £500.
I, I'm really stuck on this one because, so yes, of the three devices, this one I'm always interested in VR, but I've had my fingers burnt a couple of times now where I've bought them and not used them. So the PSVR 2, I think, was something like 350. So it was about 350 because it was nearly the price of a PS5 at the time. The Quest 3, as you said, 400, I think, something in that
Yeah.
region. I think I paid for it for 450. I think this will be more. I don't know why. I feel like I I think this could be more like
Yeah.
500 to 600, perhaps. I know you said 500, so we're not a million miles off there. I think it could be more in that region, maybe slightly more, maybe 700. The
It's
Valve
expensive,
Index
yeah.
wasn't a cheap headset, I don't think. And I think that although this has got a lot of similarities to the Quest 3, don't know. I don't know how they can. I don't know. I mean, hopefully, won't be, but I don't know. What do you think? What do you think you need to put on one side if you're saving for this? Because it's next
Yes,
year that
early next year.
this is all releasing, isn't it? Don't think they've given us any concrete dates. Early next year, so we might expect pricing
Hmm.
before Christmas. Maybe it'll come after Christmas. What do you think you probably, if you wanted to buy all three,
To
what
buy
do you
all
think you need in your
three,
bank?
and probably to buy all three at least. 2 grand for all three.
How
Yeah,
much did you say? Sorry, 2 grand.
yeah. I'd say 2 grand for all three. That makes sense. That wouldn't make sense based on my predictions before. Maybe a grand and a half. Grand and a
No.
half then.
Yeah, I was gonna say 1,500 feels like a good figure, doesn't it? I watched a VR YouTuber called Beardo Benjo, and
Yeah.
he was saying 1,500 was what he was thinking. That was where he was at, and he split it up in a similar way. He was saying like 800 maybe a bit more for the console. He didn't actually specify the price of the controller, but perhaps he was considering that that would be bundled with the Steam machine, so he wouldn't need to. And then I think he was estimating again sort of 700 for the headset. Who knows?
Do you think it's
I
likely
guess
that
we'll have
people
to
are going to
wait
buy
and
them
see.
together? Like, do you think it's going to be pushed as some kind of bundle thing? Like, I remember when the PlayStation 5 and the PSVR 2 they were kind of pushed together. Um,
I guess it depends on whether or not the Steam frame has any real reliance on or
Apparently, it can.
can be connected to the
Well,
Steam
you can
machine.
run it.
What would be the
You can
point?
use it to run the games, like the wireless dongle and everything. So you wouldn't need a dedicated PC.
So, well, and I guess it makes sense. I suppose the Steam machine is going to have a better power and graphical capability. So, yeah, you attach your dongle. Wait, you say that? They are showing
Yeah,
it there. They're showing the
yeah.
Steam frame and the Steam Deck. Great for streaming. Don't know. Perhaps then, yeah. I mean, I could. That would make sense. I mean, there'll probably be a bundle for the enthusiasts where you get a
Mm.
small discount by buying them all together, or you get some sort of like day one. I've got deep pockets kind of
I
special
did that for the
badge or
Steam Deck.
logo or something comes with it.
I was like, yeah, I
Xbox.
pre-ordered it and got some kind of deal with it.
Did you? Yeah, my Xbox One back in the day was a day one edition. I've still
Nice.
got the controller that said day one edition on it. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe. Oh, maybe they will bundle them all together. I think it's a really interesting proposition. We haven't talked about. We probably don't have time now, but it's really interesting to see, and it's refreshing to see Valve taking on a market that's traditionally been dominated by Xbox and PlayStation, and to a degree Nintendo, and maybe forcing them to
Yeah.
think a little differently about how they approach this. They've basically done, I know this has been the joke that a lot of people have made, this is not an original thought of mine, but they've done what
Yeah.
Xbox were about to do and potentially done it better in a way that now makes
Mm.
Xbox's next step really quite challenging, because now they've got this to deal with. Because there was a lot of rumors that the next Xbox was going to be what a Steam machine effectively is here, a Windows-based device with the Xbox OS that could, because I think we didn't mention earlier, but I'm pretty sure that I read somewhere that Steam Machine can
Not
still just
Windows.
operate
I
as a
think it'll be
Windows desktop.
Linux.
Right, it's got an OS, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Sorry,
you've got
Linux,
someone here doing
but it can run
graphics
as a
design
desktop.
on a
I'm
Steam
sure I'd
machine.
seen
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. But again, that
True.
might be an indicator of power. I don't know. Who knows? But it's going to be really interesting to see what the traditional console hardware manufacturers now do in response to this. And I'm very much looking forward to the inevitable teardown videos where people compare this in performance to those modern consoles. Because, like I said at the top of the conversation, is this now the most powerful console, air quotes, on the market? Or does it fall short of a PS5 Pro? Does it
Mm.
fall short of an Xbox Series X and a PS5? Where does it? Where I can't do. Surely those things are 5 years old, but who knows? It depends on what they're trying to target and where they manage to bring that price point into. If it is
Mm.
comparable with those devices, they can price them accordingly. If it's significantly more expensive, they can lean into that, but it is going to mean. Sorry, if it's significantly more powerful, then it's also going
Yeah.
to presumably
And
mean significantly
Steam
more
have a great
expensive.
Valve have a great track record of disrupting console markets. I mean, when the Steam Deck was released, it was revolutionary at the time. Because the handhelds.
It was way more
It
expensive than the
was
Switch, though, wasn't it? I know it wasn't its direct competition, but it was more
yeah.
affordable than, like you said, the
Most
Asus,
most handhelds
the Rogue
are
Allies, and all the
Windows
different
based
kind of
and
handheld
upwards
PCs.
like over £1,000. So it was revolutionary because it was incredibly powerful. You could make use of your Steam library.
Yeah,
It was building an ecosystem at the time, which has now made this more appealing and more achievable. It was priced really well. It was priced at console level when really the power could have warranted more. And I think we might see that again with this, in that they might price it low, because they're resting on the rest of the digital sales, Steam ecosystem, that kind of thing.
yeah, maybe. So what you're saying is I also need to budget for a Steam Deck.
You collect them all, Jay. Get all three.
Joking. It's like Pokemon.
Wouldn't that be funny? You
Gotta buy
convert me
them
to
all.
Apple. I'll convert you to PC
Expensive
gaming.
Yeah, and I go and become a full-blown PC gamer. Yeah, I don't think there's any risk of that. Cool. All right. Well, look, I have had a fantastic time chatting through this, Robbie. It's been a lot of fun to dust off the podcast mics and do this. So thank you for
Thank you for having me.
agreeing to it and sharing your wisdom and your knowledge of the Steam ecosystem and what they're doing. If you've enjoyed the video and you want to see Robbie do more with me in the future, then you
Please
can
do.
apply peer pressure via the comments below. But, you know, obviously let us know your thoughts on all of the Steam's announcements. I am genuinely interested in all the different perspectives here. I want to collect them and I want to know what everybody thinks. You do the usual like and subscribe, helps the channel. And I guess I'll just leave you there. And again, so thank you, Robbie, and I'll see you in the next video.